Hello, I'm the real-life fake wizard. On July 6th, 2026, Xbox CEO Asha Sharma sent an email to every employee at Xbox and then posted that email publicly. 3,200 Xbox jobs will be terminated by the end of fiscal 2027. 1,600 of them that same day. 4 studios are leaving Microsoft, and a 5th, Arcane, is still having its fate decided upon. Asha called it the most significant restructure in Xbox history, and within the hour, gaming Twitter turned into a funeral. Journalists, content creators, and industry folks alike all posting the same message. Our industry is hurting. We feel for everyone affected. Hug your developers. But the gamers? The actual gamers? Oh, they don't care. Gamers are entirely apathetic to these layoffs, and before you sprint to the comments, no, I'm not celebrating anyone losing a job, and neither are you. What I'm saying is the audience delivered its verdict on the games industry years before Sharma delivered hers, and it delivered it the only way customers ever truly deliver verdicts: at the register. Picture a restaurant with an empty dining room holding a candlelight vigil for its laid-off waiters out on the sidewalk while blaming the neighborhood for not eating there, despite the place giving everyone food poisoning. You cannot guilt an apathetic customer into buying your crap. Okay, so we should start with the numbers as a baseline here. The estimates through April 2026 claim that the Xbox Series X and S have sold roughly 35 million units. Comparatively, in the same time frame, the PlayStation 5 has sold roughly 92 million units. Xbox holds roughly 27% of the market, and that market is shrinking as people aren't buying consoles in the numbers they once did. Xbox's annual hardware sales dropped 51% in a single year, from 9.8 million consoles in 2023 to under 5 million units in 2024. In Microsoft's last reported quarter, hardware revenue fell another 33%, and Microsoft stopped publishing its own console numbers back in 2023, which tells you how proud they are of them. Sharma put the actual numbers on the record herself in that July 6th memo. Quote, "In a typical year, we lost 64 cents for every dollar we invested." That is massive, dude. And it's a massive indictment on the industry shills who've been saying Xbox is healthy for all these years. She also wrote that Xbox operates at margins 3 to 10 times lower than comparable platform and publishing businesses, and that's despite over $20 billion invested in content and hardware over 5 years, not counting the roughly $69 billion for Activision Blizzard. Annual revenue went down by nearly $500 million. So when the layoff news dropped and the audience just shrugged, can you say you're surprised at all? The customers have been fleeing this platform. Brand loyalty, and not just for Xbox here, is entirely depleted in gaming. Gamers at scale no longer have the brand loyalty as they once did in the 2000s and 2010s. Any layoffs happening in this industry is an invoice of terrible results finally paying off. And so that gives us a foundation, right? Xbox has been in freefall, burning through cash, customers jumping ship, and that brings us to why. Why is Xbox in the position it's in? Both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are comparable in console quality, at least on paper. Well, the answer is extremely simple. PlayStation may have a reputation for having no games, but on the handful of games they've had, people wanted to play them, and that mattered. Xbox, while having and acquiring all these major studios and IPs, can't ship any games that people actually want, at least at the scale needed to keep this ship afloat. Now, that is not me saying that Avowed is a quote-unquote bad game, okay? South of Midnight, Hi-Fi Rush, Outer Worlds 2, Starfield, Hellblade 2, Gears 5, Gears Tactics, Halo Infinite. This discussion does not require us to determine if each of these games is good or bad. Rather, we can confirm that despite whether Xbox games over the last 15 or so years were good or bad, it did not matter, because they were games nobody wanted. And I think that's a whole lot worse. In mid-June 2026, Windows Central's Jez Corden published a report from inside Xbox's finances, and one sentence in it matters more than the rest. Games like Avowed, Keeper, Kiln, South of Midnight, Hellblade 2, Forza Motorsport, and The Outer Worlds 2, quote, didn't come within range of expectations set by Microsoft's spreadsheets. And they missed on both measures, raw sales on external platforms and Game Pass engagement and retention. Even the audience that could play these games for functionally free didn't stick around. Add the partner titles to the same list, Minecraft Legends, Ninja Gaiden 4, Towerborn, and you're looking at a generation of output that the market inspected, considered, and declined to engage in. Mind you, and I think this is something worth considering, the average normie gamer is not actively engaged in the news, okay? And let me break that down. Most gamers play games, period. That's it. They'll see trailers and they'll see tweets every now and then, but they mostly just spend their time going to work and then coming home and playing games. And this is the majority of people. That's not to say they're actively uninformed, they're not, but rather that they just don't care as much. Controversy, even what we're doing right now, what we're talking about and discussing, is deeper than the average normie gamer might follow. For example, a normie might have heard that the Perfect Dark Xbox game got cancelled, but the trivia of knowing that the trailer Xbox premiered at the June 2024 showcase was a fake trailer is something that is unlikely for normie gamers to know. This is extremely important because the normie has exactly two sources of information on which they base their purchasing habits upon: a trailer and a group chat. What are my friends playing? Oh, Call of Duty, Fortnite, GTA, Elden Ring, Battlefield. These games spread through the normal population by word of mouth and lobby invites from one friend telling another, dude, you have to play this game, which is a massive indictment on Xbox because no exclusive this entire generation ever became that game that everyone raced home to play. Xbox has failed to win the regular gaming audience just as much as the hardcore gamers like you and me. And you can't tell me that gamers aren't spending money anymore because the industry posted its largest year in history in 2025. $195.6 billion in content revenue, as per Matthew Ball's report. Battlefield 6 sold 7 million copies in 3 days. Gamers are buying constantly, enthusiastically, and in record amounts. They're just not buying Xbox because what is being made is not for the hardcore or the normie gamers. These studios have been making products that mirror the developers and only the developers. The industry isn't dying. Xbox is just losing because they're making games people don't want. You see, you can give a studio 110 awards. It doesn't matter. We saw this with South of Midnight when people on Twitter be crying, oh, you can't lay off Compulsion Games. South of Midnight won that award and this award. Okay, but awards do not translate to profits. Awards mean nothing to the customer class. Look at the Oscars. How often does a normal person even recognize half the projects that get awards? I'm a YouTube movie critic. I see movies every single week, and I don't recognize all the stuff that's up there. Hellblade 2 led the entire 2025 BAFTA Games Awards with 11 nominations, more than any other game. And Xbox's own PR site published a celebration post about it, interviewing the team about their pride and craftsmanship. That was April 2025. By then, per Jez Corden's reporting, the game was already a miss on Microsoft's internal spreadsheets, and 15 months later, they sold the studio. We've got one hand writing press releases about the accolades and trophies, while the other hand over here marks the game a failure. And before that, there was Hi-Fi Rush. Won its awards, got publicly called a breakout hit by Microsoft's marketing team, and the studio was dead within 15 months anyway. Gamers don't care about your awards. Oh, well, Wizard, South of Midnight pulled over 1 million Game Pass players in 3 weeks. Surely that means something. Nah, man, that don't mean nothing. Game Pass has done irreparable damage to the Xbox brand. When a first-party game launches day one on Game Pass, subscribers don't buy it. At most, they just play it. Microsoft books Game Pass as its own profit and loss center, and the retail money those subscribers would have paid if they bought the game never gets credited to the studio that made the game. And that calculation of tracking quote-unquote players is that a subscriber installs the game. Against a subscriber base north of 30 million, a million players means roughly 1 in 30 of them could be bothered to boot up a game that cost them $0 additional beyond their active subscription. The other 29 million people looked at South of Midnight, shrugged, and played something else. And per Corden's reporting, that game missed Microsoft's expectations on engagement and retention anyway. Meaning, even the million people who showed up for free didn't stick around. Understand what this means. Xbox games have been tested under the most forgiving conditions in the history of the industry. $20 a month, day one click away, and it still couldn't hold an audience. And studios stopped being judged on whether anybody actually wants these games because the service needs to keep the calendar filled with new releases. And so, that's how you get a portfolio full of South of Midnights, games greenlit to feed the subscription, bringing us to a point where the games you're shipping aren't worth buying. Players getting them in their subscriptions won't play them, and compound this over years, over many titles, and you've redefined your entire infrastructure for what it means to be a customer. Sharma comes in, sees no revenue, no engagement, no retention, and yeah, are you surprised studios are being shown the door? And if you want some more proof of how upside down the Xbox model was, do you know what's been keeping the lights on? Because it's certainly not Outer Worlds or Starfield. It's Minecraft. In 2023, Phil Spencer testified under oath that Minecraft out-earns every other Xbox game and drives, quote, significant profits. And by his own numbers at the time, Microsoft's 120 million monthly players made up roughly 80% of Xbox's entire first-party audience. And as we find out today, those profits from Minecraft were spent funding the rest of the portfolio, meaning that Minecraft was funding the creation of all the Game Pass slop no one wanted, all while Minecraft content is starved. And so now, my friends, that brings us to the internet candlelight vigil. All across Twitter on July 6, 2026, content creators and journalists polluted the airwaves with, "This is devastating news for our industry. Everyone affected today is in my thoughts and prayers. I just feel terrible for everyone." Okay, so the GDC's 2026 State of the Game Industry report found that 33% of American game developers were laid off in the past 2 years, and 48% of them are still looking for work. That is 1 in 3, and that's brutal. That's brutal. That's bad news. But I'm glad everyone has your thoughts and prayers, considering your active involvement in said industry has contributed to the nuclear explosion that has taken place at Xbox and everywhere else. Good job. There are 5 people ruining entertainment: corporate executives, marketers, writers, content creators, swine, and access media journalist shills, of whom the content creators and journalists' jobs are to run damage control and defense for the corporations that feed them with continued access. For over 10 years, that is exactly what these shills have done, and now thousands of people are unemployed. Good job, dummies. For every South of Midnight that didn't sell, for every controversial Halo skin that no one bought, for every puzzling acquisition that was celebrated with a victory parade, for every micromanagement decision that padded the bloat of the industry, all of that has led us here. The industry shills were telling the world that all of this was not only hunky-dory, but also that it was healthy. Yeah, that's right. Game Pass is great. There's so much value. Mixtape is incredible. It makes me feel all these bubbly feelings. Gears 5 is wonderful. I'm so glad we replaced an extremely hyper-masculine franchise with a female lead and killed the previous male protagonist's son. It makes me feel feelings of joy. Fable taking nearly 10 years to release and removing the morality system for a sticky, morally gray replacement? Oh my gosh, it makes me feel all these feelings. And my feelings matter more than facts, because emotional validation is the only thing that ships on time in this industry. When customers look at what Xbox has to offer and says, There's nothing here that I want to buy. The Access Media's answer to that is to write think pieces about how the audience is toxic, entitled, and review bombing. In all of gaming, not just Xbox here, the only party involved that is ever held to an accountability standard is the customer. A journalist's job is not to boo-hoo on Twitter that people are being laid off. Their job was to ask why games weren't selling 5 years ago, to ask where $20 billion is going and why a studio with 1 million players engaged has no revenue. Journalists were supposed to ask questions that make sources a little uncomfortable because that discomfort, if applied early, is the thing that forces course corrections before there is an explosion of 3,200 pink slips. But they didn't ask questions. They wouldn't, because asking real questions costs access, and access is the whole business model, which means accountability only arrives the only way it ever arrives, on spreadsheets all at once, with no warning to the people at the bottom. Layoffs and consolidation are what a decade of unasked questions looks like when the bill comes due. And that's why Asha Sharma has the job. We now know she was brought in to be a Terminator. She is acting as a fixer, and whether all these efforts will be fruitful in the end, we do not know. But look at what we do know. Her memo admits in her own words that in some parts of Xbox, work passes through as many as 14 layers of management before anything gets decided. 14! Platform teams grew 40% larger this generation, while the player base shrank. Her plan is to have 5 layers max, 3 where possible, 1 accountable owner per decision, vendor spending cut in half, 20% of the workforce gone, and 4 ball and chain unprofitable companies will be shown the door. And there's also a major caveat here that a lot of people aren't taking seriously, or at least are avoiding, because it ruins the shill media's narrative. Compulsion's founder, Guillaume Provost, publicly thanked Sharma and her deputies for, quote, working tirelessly to get his studio its independence, with its games and its IP all in hand. Which means Sharma and her team are at least attempting to create peaceful transitions and lessen casualties, instead of just chopping heads off like we're being led to believe. If we look closer, Sharma is pushing for studios to focus more on mainline IPs. ID Interactive, while seeing a reported 50% team reduction, is being mandated to produce more Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein games. We're hearing reports that Bethesda is getting a mandate to get more Elder Scrolls and Fallout games made, which maybe is the correct course of action for Bethesda. Considering Skyrim was released 15 years ago, the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer was over 8 years ago, and Fallout 4 is over 10 years old. I don't see how you can blame the management team that was brought in to clean up this business disaster. Reports say that Gears E-Day cost $400 million to produce, and it's on Game Pass. This game is going to kill the franchise when it doesn't make money back. But that's only because it cost nearly $500 million to make the thing. Fable has been in development for nearly 8 years and gone through multiple do-overs. What are the chances of that game being able to break even? The Terminator is doing what the Terminator needs to do, which is to get these teams releasing products on time, on budget, and in profitable conditions. And that takes years to do, but only because corporate cancer management and HRification have been able to run rampant over this company. Gamers don't care about the layoffs, and it's not because gamers are heartless. Gamers just want good games. And as my friend 30NSG says, make a game, sell a game. That's all it needs to be. Make the games that people actually want. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and cancel your Disney Plus subscription.